Good morning, I've got my coffee. We're going to be heading down to Sydney today to use the A9III in a Sony event with all professional sports photographers. Now this is completely out of my field, but I cannot wait to push the limits on this A9III. I don't know who's going, so I'm a little bit nervous when it comes to that, but this isn't going to be a full technical review. This is going to be really hands-on. You're going to be in the field with me. I'm going to try and vlog. A little bit nervous vlogging, but I'm going to try and show you guys my experience on the A9III and really see what this sensor is all about. So let's get it.
I know sometimes life can be tough, and you feel like you just had enough. When you're thinking everything is gone wrong.
So look, tomorrow's going to be interesting, but I know the A9III is one camera that you guys probably won't buy, but the most interesting thing about the A9III is the technology that's in it, mainly that global shutter sensor. That's going to be really incredible, especially when it comes to sports, because there's fast moving pace, you're not going to have rolling shutter artifacts. It's going to be really good to see, specifically because I own the Red Komodo X, which is a global shutter sensor as well, but I also brought the ZV-E1, which you guys are seeing right now, and I brought the A7 IV just so I can show you the differences between a rolling shutter sensor and a global shutter sensor. And with that global shutter sensor design with S-Log3, the minimum ISO level is 2000, so that is quite high, and you're most likely going to need an ND filter in almost every situation unless you're indoors or darker situations. And when it comes to stills, the minimum is ISO 250. So just a little bit of context here. This is a Sony event where there's a whole bunch of professional sports photographers. There are a few wildlife photographers as well, but these are high-end people in their field. And this is Jan. He is from the sunny coast and he does a lot of wildlife photography. He's got a fantastic YouTube channel when it comes to wildlife photography, but he's testing out the A9III as well. But there are so many professional photographers in their field on this day, and you can see me next to Andy Chung. He is a professional photographer when it comes to Grand Slams, you know, tennis, all the high-end stuff. It's just incredible to be next to these photographers to see what kind of composition they're aiming for, where they're actually shooting, and what kind of images they can get out of the same situation.
It's like 38 degrees Celsius today. Wow. Who's gonna survive when you have the camera?
Not the ZV-E1.
Oh no. Do you have the warning?
I'm holding it right now. Now, first of all, we got to talk about the autofocus. And when it comes to video, the autofocus is absolutely phenomenal. It's pretty much second to none. It's just like all the other brand new alpha cameras when it comes to video. It snaps on incredibly well. And I was very impressed specifically when it comes to trying to find the eye, and you can't even see the eye, so it will actually predict the shape of the face and try and find where the eye actually is. So if someone actually has a hat on and they're bending down, you can see that the eye autofocus is still trying to find where the position of their eye actually is. This is very similar to people who actually wear helmets in motorsports. It will try and find the shape of the head and find out where the eye is. But because of depth of field and how far you are away from the subject, it should be perfectly fine. It's not going to get on their eye perfectly, but it will actually approximate where the eye potentially would be within that face shape. Now that I'm back in my studio, we do have to talk about the dynamic range because I did have a chance to have a look at all the footage and see what it looks like in the indoor shoots and then the outdoor shoots when it comes to, you know, really high contrast locations, bright, sunny, sand situations. I think the image looks incredible, especially in the real world applications. You're not going to notice any difference when it comes to lower dynamic range. Now, the camera you're looking at right now is the A7 IV, which has about a stop higher dynamic range than the A9III, but obviously the rolling shutter performance on the A7 IV is not great, but there is a lot of noise suppression that's done inside the camera to give it better performance in low light. But with the A9III, I didn't notice any difference when it came to low light problems. I was exposing as best as I could, and the image looks absolutely phenomenal. Paired with that, 24 frames per second, you can have a 1/48th shutter in this camera, which is great, and that just gives you so much more natural motion blur. And also the global shutter makes, the motion look actually physically natural, because that's pretty much what our eyes see. Our eyes don't see like a rolling shutter where we have skewed lines and all those kind of things. So I think the A9III is going to be an incredible camera, well, at least the sensor that's inside that. It's going to be an incredible video camera that's going to leak down into other cameras, and that is what I am excited about. My overall experience when it comes to this video and the image quality is just phenomenal. I absolutely love it, and I cannot wait to see this in another camera. Now, in terms of autofocus accuracy when it comes to stills, this was absolutely incredible. Now, by all means, I am not a professional photographer when it comes to sports. This is very difficult, and trying to get the right focusing mode is something that you need to learn over time. And you can see here, it focuses on the face absolutely incredibly well, but when the sand sort of pops up and blocks his face, it focuses on the sand. Now, I could have actually used like a focus hold button, which would have locked on perfectly fine because of depth of field. There wouldn't have been change of depth of field, so it still would have been sharp, but that was completely user error there, and mainly for the fact that I only had probably about 1 hour with the camera so far. Now, this is probably also using about 30 frames per second and then 60 frames per second when it actually comes into that high burst mode. I actually don't think I put it into 120 frames per second, which I'm pretty glad for, because that is a lot of stills you actually have to filter through. Now, the great thing about when you put it into Lightroom, it actually shows this little black bar with the arrow. That shows you where the burst mode actually starts. So it categorizes into where the burst modes actually are, so you can see where you've actually done those really high burst shots. And this just makes it easier in terms of categorization and, deleting photos and knowing pretty much where exactly you're up to. And speaking of this burst button, you can see here, this is pretty much where it lands. So it's kind of like the middle finger. When you've actually got your finger on the shutter, it fits perfectly right behind that grip. And if you press that, it automatically takes you into that high burst mode, because that's one thing you don't actually need very often, is put it into burst mode. It's kind of one of those things where you just want to capture one particular moment at a very short burst, as opposed to having it in burst mode all the time. So it's a very, very handy button that would hopefully be carried on to a few other Alpha cameras. The flip screen, 5-axis screen, same as the A7R5. Incredible. Should be on all Sony Alpha cameras. I wish. Now, the ergonomics of the A9III is pretty much the same as all the Sony Alpha cameras. It is a slightly different design when it comes to a little bit smoother edges. Doesn't necessarily worry me. You still got the full-size HDMI, your USB-C in, which is absolutely fantastic to have all these kind of features still leaking into all these cameras. And Canon still don't even have a full-size HDMI in their camera, so that is a big plus. But it's still got the 2 CF Express Type A card slots, the Z100 battery, which they actually do have a new grip as well, which a lot of the photographers, I'm pretty sure everyone kept the grip on. I took the grip off because I don't use grips. I want to try and keep it as small as possible. I'm pretty sure Mark Gaylor as well. If you don't know Mark Gaylor, he's a fantastic Sony ambassador when it comes to photography. Incredible work. He tries to have his kit as compact and small as possible, and he took the grip off. But ergonomically, I think it's fantastic. It has that new flip screen that you do see in the Sony Alpha 7R5, which I love and I think should be on every single Sony camera in the future. That would be amazing. But other than that, the body pretty much felt exactly the same as all the Alpha cameras. So flash photography is going to be one massive benefit when it comes to this camera, the A9III, because essentially in high-speed sync, you can have a shutter speed as high as you pretty much physically as need to go. So you can really overpower the sun, freeze the frame, and really capture the shot. Because previously your shutter speeds couldn't go as high because you wouldn't be able to freeze the frame as fast because you wouldn't be able to get as much light in. So there is a massive benefit here with that global shutter sensor. Overall, my experiences with the A9III, having it in my hands, has been absolutely incredible. Thanks to Sony for, inviting me to this event, because it was literally all professional photographers, and I am absolutely by all means not a professional photographer at all, but I am very thankful that I was invited to come along and experience the A9III with a whole bunch of other amazing professionals. And I think the camera's fantastic. 4K 100 frames per second when it comes to no crop. That global shutter sensor is just phenomenal and is quite game-changing when it comes to professional photography realm. But I do feel like this camera is suited towards professional photographers, hence all the professional photographers that were there. But I guess the general consensus as well is that it's a 24 megapixel sensor. It doesn't have 50 megapixels like the Sony Alpha 1. So when it comes down to cropping in, it doesn't obviously have as much resolution. So it really just depends on what use case you will actually find with this. I know there are a lot of people out there right now that won't buy this camera because it's very expensive. It is very pricey. And for someone who's in the professional realm, it's just another tool. And when it comes to expenses, they can obviously work it out with their companies or, a tax write-off, something like that. It is a professional tool that you'll use to create for your specific job and situation. But for normal folk like me, I don't think we're going to be buying it. It's pretty expensive. We'll wait for that tech to leak down into some of the alpha cameras or even an FX line. But anyway, my friends, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, let's get it.